Just the other day, I closed my Wells Fargo account that I have had open for more than 10 years. And here's why. I kept reading news articles that indicated Wells Fargo was guilty of illegal banking practices, and you might have heard about it. Now, since 2016, Wells Fargo has spent billions of dollars settling civil and criminal charges related to a multi-year scheme that included repeatedly misapplying loan payments, wrongfully foreclosing on homes, illegally repossessing vehicles, incorrectly assessing fees and interest, and charging surprise overdraft fees to unsuspecting customers. That's why it's always important to check your statements. That includes your credit card statements, your utility bills, and especially your bank statements, because you never know what you might be being charged for. And it's important to know where your money is and what it's being used for. I'm Steffanie Rivers, and you're watching my journal. Now, in 2023, Carrie Tolstad, the former head of Wells Fargo's retail operation, was sentenced to 3 years of probation for her alleged role in the billion-dollar scam. Probation for allegedly stealing billions of dollars. That's where we are right now. You know, if that would have been one of us, then we certainly would have not gotten probation. We would have gotten much worse. Let's take a look at Carly Tolstad, in case you've not heard about this. And you might want to ask yourself where where's your money being held and who's in charge of it and what's being done with it, because sometimes we think our money is being used one way and it's being used in another way. I'm trying to pull up her. This is Carly Stat. I don't know if you've heard about this incident, but this is the woman who was in charge of the department that was allegedly doing all the scamming. She was the former head of Wells Fargo's retail operation. She was sentenced to 3 years of probation for her alleged role in the billion-dollar scam. Now, she wasn't the only person who was charged. There was John Stump. He is the former CEO of Wells Fargo, and he didn't get any jail time. In fact, he only had to pay a fine. Now, the fine was $17.5 million. So that is something. But if you or I would have been doing this, then we would have gotten way more than that. Here's a look at John Stump. He's the former CEO of Wells Fargo, and he agreed to pay $17.5 million in a fine, and he was banned for life from the banking industry for the millions of fake accounts that were set up to meet sales quotas. So he and the other CEO, one of them got probation and he just got fired basically and had to pay a fine and never to come back. Now, if he has $17.5 million to pay a fine, there's no telling how much money he actually walked away with. So that's why I made the decision to close my bank account at Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo has been the gangster of the banking industry. And recently, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, which is a top banking regulator in the United States, claimed that it had identified deficiencies relating to Wells Fargo's financial crimes, risk management practices, and anti-money laundering internal controls. Now, that simply means that according to the Comptroller of Currency, Wells Fargo is not doing a good job of policing themselves. Now, maybe if those people, John Stump and Kerry Kallstadt, it may be if they would have gotten prison sentences instead of slaps on the wrist, that would have served as a deterrent against future scams. But here we are. Now, this information should have led me to move my money years ago, but life was lifing. I'm sure you know how that gets. Anyway, the straw that broke the camel's back for me was the story about how Wells Fargo took the money and closed the account of a young Black entrepreneur without her prior knowledge, without giving her prior notice. And this happened last September. Putting her company, and the name of the company is Beautiful Curly Me, putting her company in jeopardy of bankruptcy because she didn't have access to any of her money to run her business for at least 15 days. She couldn't cash checks. She couldn't access any of her money. And yeah, that's what Wells Fargo did to her. Let's take a look at that. If you haven't been able, if you didn't know about it, here's a little blurb about the article that I'm just going to go over. Basically, it's talking about, the name of the company again is Beautiful Curly Me, a Black-owned company run by 12-year-old Zoe O'Lee and her mom. And essentially, they said that she's owned the company since she was 7 years old. She opened the company, and both she and her mom say that Wells Fargo closed their bank accounts. So they had multiple accounts. And this occurred without prior warning from Wells Fargo, leaving their small business without access to funds for up to 15 days. The bank cited an address discrepancy as the reason for the closure, claiming that the company's office was not a physical location, despite the listed address being a legitimate Atlanta office building. And so, you know, I don't know about you, but you can't probably be without your money for one day, let alone 15 days, and you're trying to do business with people. So if you want to know more about that, you can go and look that up. But that was, for me, what's told me that I needed to move my money to another account. Now, when I heard about what happened to Zoe and her company, as well as the normal, what seems regular business practices of Wells Fargo executives, I gave myself until the end of 2024 to do what I should have done years ago, and that was close my account. So here's why it matters to me. First, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a drone company. It's called TCB Drones. And I have multiple accounts as well. And it's hard enough trying to run a business without somebody, you know, adversely affecting how you are trying to do business from day to day. So, although my Wells Fargo account wasn't the main business account, I saw a young me in young Zoe who was being mistreated, and I don't like that. So I made the decision in support of her and supporting what I should have done years ago. I moved my money. Secondly, this young lady, this young business owner could have been my daughter, could have been a family member, my granddaughter, anybody. And I wanted to do my part to show support for her and for people who look like me. Even though me closing my Wells Fargo account probably doesn't mean a whole lot in the whole scheme of all that Wells Fargo has, their assets. When I'm mistreated as an individual or undervalued as a group, I think we must show our strength by taking our buying power somewhere where we are appreciated. If enough of us take the time to demand respect and fair treatment, the loss of our business as a group will be felt. I believe that, and hopefully you believe that. Your money and your treatment, and people who look like you, their treatment matters. I'm too old, I'm too established, I work too hard for my money to spend it with people who don't appreciate me or who don't appreciate people who look like me. And who's to say why they did it, but the fact that they did it and it was something as frivolous as or an address didn't match up, that's something that could have been easily handled. And if it couldn't easily have been handled, she had money in the account, she should have access to her money. And that's the way it should be. You shouldn't do that to someone just because. You mean to tell me her address, an address discrepancy was the first time that has happened? I doubt it. So if that is how Wells Fargo handles business, in addition to scamming people, I don't want to do business with Wells Fargo. So if you find yourself or people who you care about not getting the fair and equal treatment that they should, then all you can do to show your strength and show how you feel is, okay, it's okay to write a letter. It's okay to call the complaint department, but it's better to vote with your feet and move on, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a bank account, whether it's your phone bill is too, you're getting overcharged and you keep calling about it and they keep giving you an explanation. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you this. When I first closed my Wells Fargo bank account, I went to another banking institution, and it came highly recommended. And maybe my experience is not what other people have experienced. In fact, I told someone this story and she said she had a good experience with them. So I don't know why my experience was this. I opened the account with a substantial amount of money. I was trying to use Zelle to transfer money to someone, and I was told, oh, you can't do that because it's a business transaction. Now, apparently, the government is trying to curtail people doing business through these Cash App and Zelle and all these other platforms because they're trying to keep up with money so they can tax you on it. So I get that. So they said it was a business transaction. You can't do that. I said, okay. So I tried to send Zelle through a Zelle payment to another individual that was clearly not, if nothing said this is a business transaction. It was just a normal transaction. That didn't go through. Over and over, I called, I did the online inquiry. I called at least 4 or 5 times trying to get answers as to why did this not go through. They said, well, something was a red alert came up on that transaction. We can't tell you exactly, but a red alert, so we blocked it. So I tried somebody's email. I tried somebody's phone number. I tried other people's phone numbers and emails who were Zelle approved. You know, when you get that little check mark that says you're already doing business with Zelle. I was already doing business with Zelle, and my transactions were constantly blocked, and nobody could tell me why. They just kept saying something is a red alert, is being blocked, but that's all we can tell you. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. So I closed that account. It had only been open less than a month because I took my money out of Wells Fargo. And now I'm at a new bank. And so let's see how that works. So I know it takes time, and it's frustrating because you got enough going on, trying to keep your head on a swivel, trying to watch your kids, trying to go to work, trying to keep up with the weather, trying to keep up with the lights and all of this, and keep your car running and all of this. And now you got to look at the banks and switch them out. But sometimes it just takes that. It takes taking on something extra for the big picture of what's going on. And so yeah, that the banking institution that I didn't feel was gonna be a good relationship for me. I could tell 30 days, it wasn't even 30 days. And I'm like, y'all, I got to go because they just weren't doing right by me. And so I would just say, before you get too vested and too invested in something, a business, a bank, a person, you just gotta, if it's not feeling right and it ain't even been 30 days, go on and make that move. before you are there too long. You're like, well, I've been here so long. So anyway, that's why I feel like Wells Fargo is the gangster of the banking industry. You can look up more about that. And if you are with Wells Fargo or you're with another banking institution, just do your research on how they are treating people, and how they're treating you. And if you feel like you need to move your money to where you're getting a better reception and better and return on your investment, I urge you to do that. To find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. That's at eurweb.com. Thank you so much and have a super day.